Thank you for coming and agreeing to do this panel on quality matters. It is really important for our campus to improve quality assurance. It's a campus initiative started by the Chancellor's Office. So if you would, please introduce yourself and your course before we begin with our questions.
All right, I'm Antonieta Gallegos Ruiz. I'm with the Department of World Languages and Literatures. And the course that I developed online is Spanish American Culture and Civilization.
Thank you.
I'm Song Gyo in Accounting and Finance. I'm teaching generally cost and managerial accounting in this department. I have offered online class over 7 years, just every other year. Yeah, Takia helped a lot. I appreciate that.
So, my first question of the night is, what is the Quality Matters rubric? And if you guys would please give us an explanation of what it is and how you use it.
Well, the rubric consists of 8 standards. And it begins with a course overview, and it continues with assessment and measurement, interactive, or rather activities and resources for students, the course technology, learner support, and usability and accessibility. There are others, but I found these to be very, very specific, which helped me to develop and look at categories that I wanted to include in my course. Okay?
Yeah, as she pointed out, that's a good process. Actually help the faculty members in designing good online class. That's the very systematic approach. Yeah, when I developed also revised my online class syllabus, I compared that based on the A standard, and then I could improve that. Hopefully, that can help student learning in the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did either of you happen to use the Quality Matters checklist?
Yeah, we did that, quality methods checkers, even the training class. However, I didn't practice enough, but that will be applied again and again for the ongoing online class.
Thank you. So what did the training consist of?
Well, I thought it was a 3-part training. The first session consisted of just getting to know what the objectives were of Quality Matters, what was called Quality Matters. It was a different way of, in my part, different way of looking at course objectives and learning outcomes and so on. And that first session was getting to know what Quality Matters. The second 2 sessions was really hands-on in trying to develop develop activities that went along with your course objectives. And so what that did was really understand what learning objectives of the course were and the learning outcomes. That really helped me in that. And then being able to, the third session was being able to align the course objectives with the activities, interactive measurements, and so on, really helped.
Do you have anything?
Yeah, as she pointed out, in this rubric, they showed that how to align the learning objective to the assessment. Even that was a good example. For example, in the speech, as I remember, speech class, just the learning objective showed that after finishing this class, student can demonstrate also in writing the essay type, the document, whatever. But assessment, that class showed only objective questions. That's not aligned. See, therefore, just based on that, they may change that the class assessment, the style, possibly essay type question, and then aligned. Just the learning objective could be aligned with the assessment. Therefore, yeah, same concept could be applied to my cost and managerial accounting. See, therefore, I checked that, and then mine was okay. Yeah, therefore, but that's good, systematic approach.
Since you said that yours was okay, What modifications did either of you make to the way you teach your course after having been exposed to the Quality Matters rubric?
Yeah, for example, just even I didn't, when I compared mine to this module, actually this QM process, just mine was what, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Therefore, after I reviewed this one, I tried to collect that in the course, the overview, see, and then possibly more systematic, therefore student can learn more easily for the learning objective or something like that, I hope, yeah.
The course that I revised, which was Spanish American Culture and Civ, because it's a course content that has to do with a lot of facts, dates, and so on. The Quality Matters training helped me in tightening the alignment between the activities that I had and developing new ones, because I found out that it wasn't enough just to give the subject matter that I was providing, but they needed extra activities. And the interactive aspect of Quality Matters and other types of alignment really has helped my students now that I see.
What interactions have you included?
I did like storybook, maps, they were to develop maps. There was one particular activity whereby they had to look at the subject matter in the past 2 or 3 chapters and develop a whole new storybook type of that information. And they did a wonderful job. And I think an offshoot of this kind of course is help students develop technological skills that they didn't know before. And so half of the students in the course were not had not worked with technology as much as they have with this course. So that's kind of an indirect benefit to putting on a Quality Matters online course. So I'm really pleased with what I did. Also, we all think that our lectures are perfectly all right. Well, once you start looking at them, they're not. And so, because my course was videotaped, I had to write a script because I thought I could do it just, off my notes. And I was leaving a lot of information out. So, in scripting my lectures, I realized that, some revisions had to be done. So that was one of the benefits to this Quality Matters, that you have to tighten up course objectives.
What would you say is the difference in teaching your, in the interactions and the success of your students in your face-to-face versus your online course? Is there any changes? Is there any differences? What would you say is the big difference between them, if there is any?
Yeah, there is a big difference. Just the face-to-face teaching, we can interact very directly with the student. But online class, we cannot see each other. Also, sometimes we couldn't control, see? Especially as I talk with the other faculty members, I have still serious concern for the assessment on online class. Yeah, that's the big obstacle in opening that online class. Yeah, just therefore, I don't know, someone suggested as we do just the driving test, something like that, they show the specific, they should have taken that test in front of the video through computer. But here we cannot do that, therefore even they can work together. And then if I'm offering same class, that's unfair to that traditional class, Possibly I'm tracing the grade, see? I think that the online class grade could be higher than the grade in traditional class for the same thing. And then that's a little problem. Yeah.
How did the QM program help you revise the course? Was there any specific thing that jumps out to you in the revision?
That will help for my case gradually. I cannot change just drastically. However, for my class, just a macro here that the connect program developed another huge teaching program. See, therefore, that could be just overlapped with some thought, but I could adopt the good thing from QM. Therefore, just whenever I offer online class, I'd like to adopt and I'd like to improve. Yeah, that's my hope.
Nice, thank you.
In my case, for example, in my syllabus, a traditional face-to-face class, you have objectives, but you don't have outcomes. And so you're able to even narrow down the course content and list the course outcomes. And so that really helped to focus on categories or classifications of subject matter for me a lot more.
Can you guys please share the mixture of assessments that you use in your online course?
Mhm. Well, I do multiple choice, true, false, essay questions, but also I assess interactive activities, and especially the thoroughness and depthness of the activities. And so that's another form of measurement. And the discussion boards, of course, that I have a standard discussion board. But I'd like to go back to the question that you asked about, is there a difference between the traditional classroom and the online classroom? And initially I thought that it was different. In this particular class, we talk about foods from different Latin American countries. We talk about series of a variety of say, holidays that they had, and I thought, well, no. In the classroom, I did foods, for example. But then I learned I could do that interactively. And of course, you don't taste the foods, but they learned about the countries through whatever foods. I used to have an oral presentation on online, and I thought, I can't do that now. Yes, I can, and I did. And other students are able to view that oral presentation. The only issue, I think, to make it, to favor the traditional classroom is the assessment. That how do you prevent cheating, right? How can you, unless you're there watching them? And I don't think you can control that fully. I think that you just have to make it more difficult for them to cheat online.
Yeah.
And so I think that you can place a series of deterrents that will keep them from cheating. But I don't think that there's that much different. My students objected at the beginning that online we don't get to see you, but now they're totally happy with it because I communicate with them through email, and I suggest you can study this way or study that way, and so the constant contact, I think, makes it not as painful for them not to be in the classroom.
Thank you.
Yeah, therefore, just for that strategy, we should check the assessment very frequently. Otherwise, just the online class, faculty cannot see student, and then if we give the midterm exam, some student never studied. Therefore, possibly we may ask a student to send the homework every week, and then we may give that the feedback more frequently. That's extremely important. Otherwise, many students would be in trouble just when they will be taking the exam. However, just the QM suggested strongly that the interaction among students. Therefore, I asked the student to prepare, I provided the specific format, and then I asked them to put it at the discussion board. Yeah, just if they do not want to release their own telephone number, that's fine. And then just the classmates could review other students' profile where they are working. For my MBA class, most of the students have full-time job. Therefore, they could see other student profile. Therefore, possibly when I provided the group project, maybe they may work together in the same working area, maybe finance, accounting firm, or something like that. Therefore, hopefully they can communicate better.
How have you seen your students interact in the online course?
Unfortunately, but even though I stimulated, but not much. Yeah. The problem is what? Most of the students have full-time job. Also, I couldn't see them, therefore I sent email more frequently, but still some students didn't see that the email, see therefore even I asked them to respond within 24 hours, otherwise you will not get good point, something like that. But I don't know. I gave the group project, and then they could see other student the profile, but otherwise, I guess they didn't see others.
Okay.
One of the interactive activities I have is that they are, as I mentioned before, that they are to review the subject matter for the last 3 chapters and develop some kind of presentation for that. And then the following activity, I have the students look at those and rate which was the best ones. So in that way, that's another way of having interaction with them, along with the oral presentations they see. So they don't have to be there face-to-face interacting. So that's really helped. And they've gotten to know the kind of work everybody does.
Nice. So, what do you think of your overall experience with the Quality Matters redesign of your course?
Well, first of all, I have to say I was totally against any online course before I did this. I was totally against it. I said, there's no way that there could be effective teaching. And now I'm totally sold on online courses because students do more work, more meaningful kind of work at their own time, and I think that's very comfortable for them, as it is comfortable for me too. But they do a lot more work than they do in the actual traditional classroom. I've learned a lot more in technology. Personally, as I said, I was totally against it. But I have to mention that I could not have done it without the support of Takia Moore, of Elizabeth Viramontes, and Katie Goddard. They were constantly there answering my questions, whatever time of day. The support to put on a class like this, you have to have it. And fortunately, these 3 women are very patient people. And so I've had a lot of support from them. So much so I would like to put another class online. So I don't know. But that's, to me, has been all positive.
Yeah, actually, just I don't like online class for student learning. However, in reality, online, the government, also Cal State system is pushing online. Why? I'm cost accounting professor. That's a very cost effective method. However, based on cost and benefit approach, just when we include the student learning, I doubt. However, we have no choice to offer online class now. Therefore, now with the limited resource, how to make the maximum efficiency. See, therefore, even I really appreciate your department, the personnel, including Takia. I got a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions to Takia. Without her help, I couldn't do it. See, therefore, possibly other faculty members may get the help, and then I appreciate the QM training. Yeah, that not great, but absolutely helpful. See, therefore, with the limited resource in this situation, how to assess more fairly, how to maximize student learning. Yeah, that help.
Were there any difficulties you encountered or any points of pain that you think other faculty members would benefit from hearing so they don't make have the same experience?
Yeah, not much.
Okay.
Not much.
I think that some of us are not really knowledgeable in technology. And our biggest obstacle is to be afraid of it. Say, no, I don't want to try that. And I can't do it. I don't know anything about it. And so to have an open mind, I think is really an obstacle out of the way. And it certainly has helped me. And now that I can see what I can do has saved me a considerable amount of time. And so it takes a little while to learn it, but at the end it's worth it.
So, do you have any parting words of wisdom or recommendations to anyone else? Would you recommend this course of study to anyone else, this Quality Matters rubric, to any of your colleagues or friends?
I don't know whether my speaking is good or not in this meeting, but especially for the junior faculty members who may be offering online class. In that case, department or college should fully support the faculty. Otherwise, just a lecture session, when the students were taking exam, some students did that all the time. Oh, my computer got stuck, that didn't work. And then just the first time we may accept that. But some students did continuously. And then I'm the most senior faculty member. I can take action. You should eat within 1 hour. Otherwise, you cannot get credit. However, junior faculty members cannot do that. Therefore, what shall they do? They are giving good grade, quiet. See, therefore, in that sense, department, the college should strongly, even though junior faculty may give that some very strict action, and the student may complain, university should protect that. Otherwise, good grading, that I have a serious concern for that.
I definitely think that Quality Matters does make you an effective instructor, face-to-face and online. Absolutely, the rubrics is just the rubric is just so specific that it really makes you think how you've been teaching your other courses. I definitely think it's a good one. I'm all for it. Yay, Quality Matters.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
I could do a sharing.
Please, yeah.
As you know, this summer I worked on an online course trying to develop the course online. I also received a lot of support. I need someone with me to help me along the way. And I enjoy the process, so I'll go home and I'll do a lot of work, but I really need that hand-holding.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things in an in-class experience that I love, and there's a difference between qualitative and quantitative kind of classes. Mine are very qualitative. Is I love that interactive activity within the classroom, because sometimes students don't even talk, but you catch their eye, and you know that things are going well, or you know something's not. That kind of body communication, we'll never be able to get that on the computer. But I want to make my online class, which I haven't taught yet, as interactive as possible, so that we also have this kind of living class online. I feel it's really important to enjoy life and to enjoy our learning experience. So I was going to try out a little bit of the YouTube. We have this YouTube, so that maybe if each one just does it once. Now in a class of 30 students, I could see how this being possible, right? And I want to do on the discussion board, I'm going to have them respond to the reading, then another group respond to the responses, and another group summarize that. I want to try that, so that they're thinking, right? But I do want to make it kind of living. But when it comes to assessment, so in a qualitative class, I can see how it will work we can easily assess qualitatively and avoid the cheating
Right.
component. If
That's
it's a
right.
qualitative type of
Mhm.
assessment.
Yes.
Because nobody can do what one person can do, right?
Mhm.
Nobody can duplicate.
Yeah.
But if you have a logic class, or if you want to do a kind of quantitative type of assessment, that's my question.
Mhm.
And even if the class is so interactive along the way, but if you want to use a quantitative type of assessment measure, how do you, in something like accounting, you would always probably do a quantitative kind of assessment
Mhm.
approach, right? You know what I mean, like a multiple choice test.
Right.
How do you, is there a program in place? There just isn't, is there?
No, there's programs
That,
that deal with authenticating the user and their activity in the course. But it depends on the environment you're attempting to establish. So I think I'll let Dr. Hood answer some of it because he does a lot of assessment in his course and he's, as he said, has been doing it for 7 years, so he's seen quite a bit of development and change in the students, and he has ways of tracking their patterns of activity. So if you would please share how you deal with quantitative assessment of quantitative material in your online course.
Yeah, therefore, just the McGraw-Hill developed that specific question or essay type question. However, just that greatly helped us. Otherwise, how can I offer for the student, for assessment? But the connected system is what measuring the student performance for us. Therefore, otherwise, your class literature, I don't know, too many essay type question online, it's very, very time consuming.
In this course, the Culture and Civilization course, I have a critical thinking type questions in essay form, so they can think about what the subject matter. But I also have multiple choice, okay, and identification.
What is, oh yeah. I
Identification
understand that.
questions. And what I was, someone suggested, as a matter of Takia suggested, that the multiple choice questions, in order to deter from anyone cheating, is to add, explain why you chose
Yeah,
this.
that was a good idea.
Yeah, explain why you chose this answer, okay? And so that way you begin to see the writing style and so on, that you can easily identify if it's the student or not, because after 3 weeks, you know how they write.
And I agree with you earlier, you were mentioning that in some ways, it's kind of a balance. An in-class face-to-face experience, in some ways, is easier to teach than an online class. Because in class, we're human beings, and so it's all of our body communicating.
Right.
We can flub up, right?
Mhm.
But if you're presenting a lecture discussion online, or you're preparing something, you really have to be, it's more refined, isn't
Mhm.
it? It seems
Focused.
like, maybe at the beginning it takes a lot more work to get it
Right.
going, but then it gets easier as you go
Yes.
along.
And for the students too, it takes them a while to get used to it, but once they're organized and they know what they have to do, it's a lot easier.
It's
And
fulfilling.
those are the comments I'm getting now,
Mhm.
that they're actually liking it.
Mhm.
I'm happy about that.
Also with Dr. Hood's course, he does a Think Smart it is. I think it's Think Smart from McGraw-Hill, where they are determining their level of understanding for the course content materials as they go along. So there's these little formative assessments that go on before you get to the larger summative assessment on whether or not they actually learned what they thought they learned. But he can see their patterns with all that. They have their homework assignments, and you can see where that student is scoring, how they're scoring. There's also the randomization of questions, because they have a deep pool of questions with him. So there's a lot of material that go on in that, and also there's the group project where you can actually really observe their patterns in terms of their interactions, what they're contributing truly to that lecture, to the learning experience of their colleagues, because you can see things like the wiki, you can see their exchange in the emails, so you can tell, Sally is contributing 70% of this paper, whereas Johnny and Susie and Tommy are all only contributing, the other 30%.
Mhm.
And it's something that you can clearly quantify. in
Yeah.
terms of their engagement.
They applied artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Therefore, just the learning that could be modified to each different student. Also, for the exam, even though we are choosing same question, but algorithm will be changing the numbers. Therefore, even same the student will be taking same question.
A
the
different
Random.
mathematical
Right.
It's randomly,
configuration.
uh-huh.
In order to prevent the cheating, something like that.
It's interesting.
And you have a limited time, you set the time.
I think I'll have to stick with my qualitative, because I'm not mathematically inclined. And even that description of all these programs, Takia, I understand everything you're saying, but it sounds like a huge learning curve for me. I like and it's okay, because I do anthropology, social and cultural, it's like history, right? It's okay if I do qualitative assessing rather
Yeah.
than quantitative.
I think what's
Yeah.
important with the application of the QM rubric is that you can still find space in it to be yourself in your online
Yeah,
course.
thank you.
Mhm.
Because if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
only going by the checklist, then you may not be bringing your best self. You may be checking all the boxes,
Mhm.
but you may not be your same expert self that you are in your face-to-face class, in your
Mhm.
online class. And you want to make sure that you preserve the quality and integrity of your teaching style.
Yes.
Also, positive side for online class, just I felt that many students in online class possibly have a stronger motivation than those students in the traditional class. Yeah, but some students just think online class easy for easy grading, something like that.
But in reality, I have a friend who's doing an MA program online, so I asked to look at her Blackboard. And you have to be very well organized as a student to keep up with the class
Oh,
online,
yes.
I would imagine.
Yeah,
That's right,
right.
a lot. They have to.
Therefore, just that is the possibly developing the stage. Still, we needed to modify, something like that. Therefore, just the even university-wide, we should discuss how to just the maximize online class education. That should be ongoing project. Yeah.
And you know what I'm thinking out loud now? I'm thinking an online course would be great, but wouldn't it be great if every online course, as part of the course, would just require once or twice face-to-face, even just once? So that all the students that are working together but some of them are so far away, that's the problem, isn't it?
Depends on the class. The research shows that the majority of students who take an online course live within 50 miles of the university that they're taking the course. So it's not impossible, but
Yeah. That invigoration.
I introduced in the very first day of class, an activity where they all introduce themselves individually. So they all, who are you and what's your major and what do you like to do, whatever they want to say. That way the other students can see it.
And then among themselves, they're free to exchange telephone numbers if they wish to.
Yeah, for me, the best thing could be blended teaching. That will be, therefore, I asked some student, I sent the email, just if you have any other question, especially very important question, every other Saturday, I'll be coming to school, just to show up. There were some students showed up, however, I did not continue. Why? Some students who were living at Sacramento sent the email. That's unfair, see, therefore. That's the.
But you could, I'm just thinking out loud, you could theoretically do something like be in your office to meet the ones that come face to face, but have technology help you up with Skype.
Skype, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I did that, but possibly in the assessment, we should integrate that. Otherwise, as I don't know, for my class, MBA class, most students have full-time job. Even I strongly encouraged to communicate with me via the Skype, except one student.
Could it be that accounting is so straightforward? Do you know what I mean by that? No, it's not that.
not much straightforward. Some students think that's the computation, but even the MBA is the program, we have a lot of discussion, question, whatever, management, decision-making process, but just the, yeah, let's see. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this conversation on today, and thank you so much, panel, for your
Thank you.
enlightenment.
Thank you, just that you invite us here. I didn't expect.